The spark of defiance. The Galactic Council Chamber was one of the oldest structures in the universe. It was built on a massive station that floated between stars. Here, the rulers of great empires gathered, each one proud and arrogant. They came, with their banners, their fleets, their history, and most of all, their rules. The galaxy lived by rules, laws written over thousands of years, and no species dared to break them. On this day, a new law was being discussed. It was strict, it was cold, and it was designed to control every race that joined the council. The older empires smiled because they knew that every new member had no choice but to obey. But this time, one species was different. Humans sat in the corner of the chamber, silent, watching, listening. The aliens looked at them with suspicion. Humans were young compared to the great empires, yet they had spread fast. They had built colonies on distant worlds, and their ships moved boldly through the dark. The council thought humans would be easy to tame. After all, every species had once been proud, and every one of them had been forced to kneel. The council leader, a tall alien with crystal skin, raised his voice. "The law is clear," he said. "From this day, all new colonies must be registered and taxed. All fleets must follow council routes, and no independent action is allowed." The chamber echoed with agreement. The empires nodded, and the law seemed ready to pass. Then something happened that no one expected. A human stood slowly but firmly. He wore no crown, no glowing armor, only the dark uniform of Earth's delegation. His eyes moved across the chamber, calm but burning with fire. When he spoke, his voice was not loud, but every word carried weight. "Humans will not sign this law," he said. The chamber froze. For a moment, silence was heavier than war. No one dared believe what they had just heard. The leader's crystal face turned sharp. "What did you say, human?" The man did not move. "We will not sign. We will not bow. We will not follow rules that chain us." Whispers exploded across the chamber. Some laughed, calling humans arrogant. Others looked uneasy, because deep inside they felt the fire in his voice. But the council leader slammed his hand against the stone table. "You are young, human," he hissed. "You do not understand the weight of these rules. Every empire here has paid the price of resistance. Do you think you are greater than all of us?" The human answered with steady calm. "No, we do not think we are greater, but we know one truth. Humans do not bow to rules. We make them." The words fell like thunder. The council chamber shook with outrage. Some shouted for punishment. Some demanded war, but the human did not step back. He knew his people would stand with him, even against the stars. In that moment, the galaxy saw something they had never seen before. A species that refused to kneel. A people who dared to say no. It was not power that scared the empires. It was defiance. Defiance burned brighter than weapons, and the galaxy trembled because of it. The human returned to his seat, silent once more. But the damage was done. The spark had been lit, and every empire in the chamber knew this was only the beginning. The warning. Ignored news of the human defiance spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Every council, chamber, every palace, every warship whispered the same story. One species had dared to stand in the face of the old empires and say no. For some, it was foolishness. For others, it was madness. But for many, it was terrifying. The first warnings came quickly. Envoys from the larger empires arrived at Earth carrying gifts in one hand and threats in the other. They spoke of peace, but behind their smiles were blades. They told humanity to reconsider, to sign the treaty, to avoid disaster. But every message was answered with the same steady words. "We will not bow." Alien diplomats could not understand this refusal. In their long histories, no race had ever stood against the council and survived. The rules were not just laws. They were chains that held the galaxy in order. Breaking them was not only rebellion, it was an invitation to war. On the moon base of Titan, a council envoy shouted in frustration at a human officer, "You do not know the weight of what you are doing. Your kind will be crushed, your colonies burned, your fleet scattered." The officer only looked back with calm eyes. "Maybe, but if that happens, we will fall on our feet, not on our knees." The words shook the envoy, who returned to his masters with anger and fear. The alien empires gathered in secret halls, debating how to respond. Some argued for patience, believing humans would soon learn respect. Others demanded immediate action, punishment, war. But the council leader, with his crystal skin shining in cold light, declared, "We will give them one more chance, one final warning. After that, they will be crushed." Back on Earth, the leaders met in a quiet underground chamber. No banners, no golden thrones, only tired faces and sharp determination. They knew what the galaxy planned. They knew war was coming. And yet, not one of them spoke of surrender. Instead, they prepared fleets, began silent patrols at the edge of human space. Colonies fortified their defenses. Engineers worked day and night, building weapons that had no place in the Council's rules. Every step humans took was outside tradition, outside permission, outside control. And with each step, they grew more dangerous. Still, there were voices of doubt among humans. Some feared the galaxy's power. Some begged to give in. But again and again, the same fire rose. We are not made to live by someone else's rules. We are made to write our own. The word spread, not only on Earth, but across human colonies light years away. They became more than defiance. They became belief. The galaxy watched, waiting. The Council sent one last warning, a message carried on waves of authority. Submit or face destruction. Every empire waited for the human reply, certain that fear would finally bend them. But when the reply came, it was simple. 2 words that cut deeper than weapons. Not now. The chamber of the Council trembled with rage. The empires knew patience was over. The humans had ignored every warning, and the galaxy prepared to teach them the price of rebellion. What the empires did not know was that humans had already accepted that price. They were ready to pay it, in blood, in fire, in stars. And for the first time in centuries, the old powers felt something they had almost forgotten: doubt. Clash of wills. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of silver warships entered human space, their hulls glowing with the symbols of the Council. They carried the arrogance of empires that had never been challenged. They believed this would be quick, that humans would kneel once the first shots were fired. The alien commander spoke across the void, his voice cold and sharp. "Earth, surrender now. Obey the law of the Council or your colonies will burn." The message reached every ship in the human fleet, and for a moment there was silence. Then came the reply, calm, firm, and unshaken. "Come and try." The battle began in the dark, silence of space. Alien ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons firing in strict rhythm. Every move followed rules written over centuries, rules that had crushed hundreds of species before. But humans did not fight by those rules. Their ships broke formation, twisting through the void like hunters. They attacked from angles the Council had never considered. They shut down their lights, vanished into shadows, and struck like ghosts. The alien fleet tried to adjust, but confusion spread fast. Their commanders shouted orders, but human ships never stayed where they were expected. One moment they were behind, the next they were above, the next they disappeared completely. The rules of war were useless against a people who refused to follow them. On the bridge of a human battleship, the captain gave quick orders. "Don't follow patterns. Don't give them a rhythm. Think like predators, not soldiers." His crew obeyed, and their ship cut through the battlefield like a blade in the dark. Each victory was small, a damaged cruiser here, a disabled frigate there, but each small strike broke the Council's confidence. The alien commander grew furious. "These humans fight without honor," he shouted. "They break every law of combat. They are animals." But his officers hesitated, because animals or not, the humans were winning. One alien ship tried to retreat, but a human destroyer cut across its path, firing at close range. Another was lured into an asteroid field where human fighters waited. Every trap, every trick, every forbidden tactic was used, and for the first time, the mighty Council fleet began to break. The humans took losses too. Their ships were smaller, their numbers fewer. But every time one human ship was destroyed, another struck back twice as hard. It was not discipline that carried them, it was raw will. And that will was something the galaxy had never seen before. Hours passed, and the battlefield was littered with broken ships. The alien fleet, once proud and perfect, now burned with scattered flames. The human fleet, scarred and battered, still stood firm. And in the silence after the last shot, a message was sent to the Council. Your rules failed. Your order failed. Humanity will not kneel. Across the galaxy, fear spread. For centuries, the Council's fleets had been unchallenged, their laws unbroken. But now, one young race had shown that the galaxy's order could bleed. The clash of wills had ended, but it was only the beginning of something greater. The humans returned home, their people cheering them as heroes. But behind every cheer was the heavy knowledge that this was not victory. It was an invitation. The galaxy would not forgive. The Council would not forget. And soon, far greater, fleets would come. Yet in the heart of every human there was no fear. There was only fire. For they had tasted defiance, and once tasted it could never be taken away. Struggle across the stars. The Council did not forgive. The defeat of their first fleet was not seen as a battle lost. It was seen as an insult. To them, humans had not just broken rules of war, they had broken the very spine of galactic order. And so the Council gathered more allies. From the burning suns of the Voth, from the icy worlds of the Creel, from the shadow empires of the Iran, fleets began to rise. Whispers spread across the stars. They are sending a coalition, some said. More than 1,000 ships, others whispered. Never before had so many empires united for one purpose, but fear and pride drove them. They would teach humanity a lesson so brutal that no other race would ever dare to resist again. On Earth, the leaders received the news with calm faces, but behind their calm there was steel. They knew the odds. They knew the galaxy wanted to crush them, yet no one suggested surrender. Instead, the orders were simple. Prepare for the long war. Human colonies turned into fortresses. Factories burned day and night, building ships, weapons, armor. Engineers built strange machines, weapons the Council had banned centuries ago. Things too dangerous, too unpredictable. But humans built them anyway, because to humans, rules of war meant nothing when survival was at stake. When the first wave of the coalition arrived, the stars turned red with fire. Alien fleets came in perfect lines, shining like blades. But humans met them not with lines, not with order, but with chaos. Fleets scattered into dozens of directions, each ship hunting, each crew fighting like predators. Where the coalition expected surrender, they found traps. Where they expected patterns, they found madness. And slowly, painfully, the war spread across systems. But humans were not the only ones watching. Smaller races, silent and oppressed for centuries, began to whisper, if humans can resist, why not us? In dark corners of the galaxy, rebellions began to stir. On mining worlds, slaves picked up stolen weapons. On border colonies, workers refused to pay the Council's taxes. Every act of resistance traced back to one spark. Humanity, the Council, leaders sat in fury. They had united fleets, but still the war did not end. Instead, it spread like infection. Chaos bleeding into systems once loyal. An alien admiral stood before the Council and said words that chilled every empire. If humans don't follow rules, how do we defeat them? But there was no answer. For every plan they made, humanity broke it. For every trap they set, humanity twisted free. The rules that had shaped the galaxy for centuries no longer mattered. The struggle was no longer for control of humans. It was for the survival of the order itself, and as human ships cut through enemy fleets, as rebellions flared in distant systems, the galaxy trembled because everyone could feel it. The struggle was no longer just about Earth. It was about the future of every world, every empire, every race that had ever been forced to kneel. The galaxy trembles. The galaxy had always moved in order. Empires ruled, smaller races obeyed, and the Council kept the balance. But after the battles with humanity, cracks began to show. Whispers turned into shouts, and shouts turned into flames. On the mining colonies of the Creel, workers refused to send resources to the Council. On the frozen moons of the Iran, slaves rose in rebellion, shouting human words of freedom. Even in the shining capitals of the great empires, protests spread. Like fire for the first time in ages, the oppressed believed they could fight, and it was humanity that gave them this belief. Stories of human defiance traveled faster than light, tales of a species that refused to bow, that broke every law, that fought like predators. These stories were repeated in every tavern, every market, every shadowy corner of the galaxy. The galaxy trembled not because humans were strongest, but because humans showed that rules could be broken. The council panicked. They gathered more fleets, more armies, more threats. But the harder they tried to crush rebellion, the more the rebellion spread. For every world they burned, 2 more rose in defiance. For every people they enslaved, others picked up weapons. Meanwhile, humanity fought, unscarred but unbroken. Their fleets were small compared to the endless waves of the council. But they fought with fire, with madness, with courage that no law could contain. Every victory cost them blood, but every loss only hardened their will. The galaxy watched in awe, wondering how a young species could fight giants and still stand. On the bridge of a council flagship, an alien admiral stared at the growing chaos. "This is not war," he whispered. "This is infection." But another officer shook his head. "No, this is change." Back on Earth, leaders studied the galaxy. With grim eyes, they knew they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something greater. Because now, humanity's defiance was no longer only about humans. It was about everyone who had ever lived under chains. The council leader, his crystal skin glowing with fury, shouted in the great chamber, "Humanity must be destroyed at any cost. Their fire spreads across the stars. If we do not end them, they will end us." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The galaxy was already trembling, and the old order was breaking apart. Ships burned across star systems, colonies rose against their masters, fleets fractured into chaos. The universe was no longer the same, and deep in the shadows of war, a dangerous thought spread from world to world. If humans can win, maybe we can too. Price of defiance, the war spread like fire across the stars. But fire consumes everything, even the ones who carry it. Human fleets fought with fury, but the cost was heavy. Every victory left graveyards of ships drifting in silence. Every battle returned fewer soldiers than had gone out on the colonies of Mars. Families waited for fathers and mothers who never came back. On Earth, cities filled with wounded heroes, men and women scarred by fire and steel. Children grew up learning the sound of sirens and the glow of burning skies. The price of defiance was no longer a secret. It was carved into every human heart, yet still no one spoke of surrender. When leaders gathered in their hidden chambers, they did not ask how to give up. They asked only how to fight better, how to strike harder, how to endure longer. Humans had accepted pain as the weight of freedom, and that truth made them dangerous in ways the Council could not understand. But the Council had its own fear. The rebellion spread faster than they could crush it. Empires once loyal now hesitated, watching carefully. The old order shook on its foundation, and the blame always returned to one name: humanity. In the council chamber, voices rose in fury. "They are a plague," shouted one emperor. "They infect the stars with madness," cried another. "They must be erased completely," declared the leader with crystal skin. His voice was cold, sharp, final. "Earth must burn." The words spread like thunder across the chamber. Some empires hesitated, fearing the risk. Others demanded it, seeing no other way. But all of them knew what such an act meant: to destroy. Earth was to declare a war so total that no end could be found. Meanwhile, in the shadows of human command, a desperate plan was born. If the Council brought its full power to destroy Earth, humanity would answer with something forbidden, a weapon too dangerous even for humans. It was not polished, not safe, not lawful, but it was ready. And in the silence of their chambers, human commanders whispered, "If they come for our home, we will show them what defiance truly means." The galaxy felt the weight of the moment. Oppressed races waited. Rebellions paused. Fleets slowed. Everyone knew the Council was preparing for its final move. Everyone knew humans were preparing too. The universe held its breath, caught between fear and fire, and for the first time, even the strongest empires wondered if the price of defiance was not too high. But humanity had already answered that. Questioned with their blood, the price had been paid and it would be paid again. Because humans would rather burn with the stars than kneel under chains. A new rule. Written in fire, the sky above Earth turned black with shadows. The council had arrived, not with fleets, but with an armada so vast it blotted out the stars. Every empire that still obeyed had sent ships, each one burning with the promise of Earth's destruction. From orbit, the fleet stared down at humanity's homeworld, waiting for the final order. The council leader's voice thundered across every channel. This is the end of your defiance. This is the end of your kind. Kneel or be erased. On Earth, the people listened in silence, their faces pale but unbroken. In orbit, human fleets stood ready, smaller, scarred, but burning with fire. They knew what was coming. They knew they were outnumbered. And still, no one lowered their flag. Then the order came. Alien ships moved in unison, their weapons glowing brighter than suns. The first blasts fell upon Earth's defenses, shattering shields, tearing through metal and stone. Cities shook. Oceans boiled, mountains cracked. The price of defiance was being demanded in full, but humanity had prepared for this moment. From hidden silos deep beneath Earth's crust, from secret stations orbiting in shadows, a weapon was awakened. Not a single bomb, not a single gun, but something darker. A storm forged from forbidden science, a weapon that broke every law of the council. Its name was never spoken because it was not meant to exist. But on that day it roared into the stars. The armada above Earth trembled as the storm spread. Ships vanished in waves of light. Systems collapsed, engines froze. The weapon did not strike like normal fire. It tore apart rules themselves, bending the very laws of war in space. The empires screamed in fear, for the first time realizing that humanity had gone beyond limits. They had turned defiance into creation, creation into destruction. But even as the storm raged, humanity did not use it to wipe out everything. They unleashed just enough to make the galaxy understand, just enough to carve one message across the stars: we do not bow, we do not break, we decide our own fate. The council armada scattered, some fled, some begged for ceasefire, some vanished into the storm's light. And in the ruins of their pride, the old order collapsed. The council's power, once unshakable, was broken by fire and will. When silence returned to the skies, humanity stood bloodied but unbowed. The galaxy stared in awe and fear. For the first time, the council sent envoys not with threats, but with trembling respect. And in the great chamber that had once demanded Earth's obedience, humans entered again. This time they did not sit in the corner. They sat at the center. And with voices steady as stone, they declared new laws. Laws of freedom, laws of choice, laws not chained by old empires. The galaxy paid the price of humanity's defiance. Worlds lay in ruin, fleets shattered, empires humbled. But from that fire, something new was born. A truth written not in ink, not in stone, but in the very stars themselves. Humans do not bow to rules. Humans make them. And the galaxy would never forget it.